Welcome everyone to the August 21st, 2025 Garrison Board of Education regular business meeting and tax levy meeting. We will have the call to order, please, Dustin.
Jocelyn Appicello.
Absent.
Eric Arnold.
Absent.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson.
Present.
Dan Jasnow.
Present.
Peter Lesser.
Present.
Ken Schott.
Here.
Sarah Torn.
Absent. Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okie doke. We are going to move to item 2, which is accept the agenda or agenda changes. I did want to suggest one change, which is to switch the order of board president remarks and superintendent's report, so that the superintendent's report will be item 4 and board president remarks will be item 5. Any objections? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So I guess I need to read the action, right? Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. So you got that, Dusty?
Mm-hmm.
We are then going to move into item 3, which is the public hearings. Our first public hearing tonight is the public hearing on the district-wide safety plan, which is, for those who are not familiar, and for our audience tonight, or anyone watching on our popular YouTube channel, the district safety plan is something that we review and adopt annually, and it is put together by a district-wide safety committee. I just want to highlight, and then I'll turn it over to you, Greg, that it's a very multifaceted plan. It covers a lot of issues that came up a lot during the SRO and SPO discussion over the past year, and includes things, you know, what you would expect of sort of emergency preparedness, emergency response, but also things like some of our SEL programming, some of our early detection efforts, anti-bullying, visitor procedures, all that kind of stuff. So it's very comprehensive. It's a great group of people that are involved in this, including our school psychologist, counselor, as well as good cross-section of our staff and administration. So I would encourage folks to take a look at it. It's always available online, and it will be reviewed again every year. It may also need to be reviewed again in the near term, assuming that we proceed with the SPO contract. Anything else you want to mention on that, Greg?
Thanks, Dan. You were very comprehensive. It's just a couple things I want to mention to the public. Every district in New York State, by law, is required to develop a safety plan, and this plan is closely tied to our building emergency response plan, which is not available to the public because it really goes into detail about what we do in emergency situations, and we would not want that information public. But the district-wide safety plan gives a good overview of the protocols that we use in response to emergencies. It talks about risk prevention and interventions that we use, Dan, like you said, like our SEL programming and other risk preventions, or trainings or drills. It goes through all of that, how we will respond to emergencies, and it also talks a little bit about how the district uses a command structure called incident command structure as a framework for how we manage in emergency situations. And then, as I said earlier, it goes into specific protocols we have to use if there's a bomb threat or if there's an evacuation on-site, off-site. It really lays that out. As you said, Dan, the only caveat to this was posted publicly for 30 days for public comment. We're having a public hearing this evening. I will share with the board and the community, I did receive one public comment, and it was a question about the SPO and how that and why that was not in this plan. And my response was, at the time we developed this plan, which is required to be adopted by the Board of Education by September, We did not have an SPO contract. If the board does decide to onboard an SPO, we will then we will amend this current district-wide safety plan, post it for 30 days with the required protocols as well as the contract, which is required. Post it for 30 days, do this again, have a public hearing, and then adopt it, a revised version of the district-wide safety plan.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from board members?
I just had one other question about how the staff becomes aware of the district safety plan contents.
Yeah, that's a great question. At our, they become really aware of the building-wide safety plan, which is more detailed. It's aligned specifically to the district-wide, but it really goes into more details. And we actually have required training that we do during superintendent's conference days or professional learning days in September. We actually have Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES coming in and doing direct training on a lot through the safety services. Does a lot of required training, and we review this. We review the emergency response plan with all staff members prior to the start of school.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Any questions from the public? Or do you want to take? Do you want to talk about the comment we received, or?
Yeah, I did. The comment we received was about the SPO and why it wasn't in here. And if the board does decide to onboard an SPO, we will have to amend it, post it for 30 days, have another public hearing, and adopt it with the required annexes as well as the contract with the sheriff's office as an addendum.
Great. Yes.
What's an SPO? What does that abbreviation stand for?
Sure. So it's called a special patrol officer, and that is.
Got it.
Yep. Got it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public, our public, about the safety plan? Great. Then we will close the public hearing. Right?
We'll just have to talk on that, and then we'll have to talk about the code of conduct.
Yeah. So close the public hearing on the district-wide safety plan, and we will move on to the public hearing on the 2025-2026 code of conduct. So this is largely the same as last year, but with some with a couple notable changes. I think the biggest one being the new cell phone policy, which is a policy we are required to have adopted and implemented by the state. And other than that, so the code of conduct has been updated to reflect some of those changes, the required policies, but other than that, it's largely the same as previous years.
That is correct. Yeah, it's just talks about how we manage the New York State required law on the ban on internet connected devices during the school day, and I can talk a little bit more about it in my superintendent's report.
Great. I would also just note that I did a thorough reading of this before today's meeting, and it does lay out the expectations for board members as well as everybody involved in the community, from parents, volunteers in the community, and of course all of our staff and students and everybody else that's in the building. So it's a great read. I would encourage people to take a look at it. Are there any questions from board members?
It's not a question, but and I don't think we're there yet, but I think in a future code of conduct, we might want to consider addressing the use of artificial intelligence for completing assignments, but I don't think we're there quite yet.
That's a great comment. A lot of districts are grappling with that. It typically starts with some exploration so we can all understand the implications, a board discussion about it, a policy, and once it becomes policy, then we can write it into the code of conduct. But we are probably where most districts are.
You know, some districts are not, and we had talked at our policy committee meeting that we weren't ready yet to have a policy, but some districts are putting things in the code of conduct, but more for high school students at this point. But something for us to think about for the future.
Absolutely.
Questions or comments? All right. Any questions or comments from members of the public? All right. And we will move right along and close. Yeah, we will close the public hearing on the code of conduct. Okay. Alright, so moving on to new item 4, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dan, Board of Education and community members. It is August 21st. We are anxiously awaiting the arrival of our staff and then our students. But tonight, the board, I'm making a recommendation for the board to welcome some new and some familiar faces to the Garrison team. First, this evening, Margaret Berger comes to us teaching from Ithaca, and she will be recommended this evening to be our new first grade teacher. As the community and the board remembers, Debbie Earle, our pre-K teacher, resigned to be a building principal in Elmsford, and we had to backfill that elementary position. And Margaret Berger will be our first grade teacher working alongside Julie Green. We have a new teacher aide. We had a teacher aide resign, and we're, again, not a new position, but replacing. We'll welcome Zemery. Zemery comes to us with a lot of experience working in both general and special education. Jeff and Jared, who are our music teachers, elementary. Jared was appointed at the last meeting, and this evening I'll be recommending that Jeff Barone be appointed as our music teacher working in the middle school. And this marks a really exciting chapter for Garrison. We were securing their services through Arts and Education, through Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, and now these two will be on staff, really securing and cementing our performing arts program. And also, I do have an announcement. We have, through Arts and Education, because it is not a 1.0 full-time position, Natalie Arnson will be our new theater teacher that we welcomed from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. She has a lot of experience in theater. She's worked in schools, she's worked at local theaters, worked with students. We're really excited to welcome her on board. And Ms. Emmett will talk a little bit more about it to our families as the school year progresses. I wanted to talk to the board and the community about our Summer Scholars Program, and first thank the board and the community for supporting this. Just a quick reminder, this was previously supported by grants, and now it is in our general operating fund. We had 39 students enrolled this summer. We had an average daily attendance of approximately 25 students each day. That's a pretty good, for a summer program, that's a pretty good average attendance. Now that we secured this program through general operating funds, we do want to take a little bit of a deep dive, not so deep, but deep dive into the efficacy of this program and what is our return on investment. So at the end of the school year, we definitely wanted to collect some data, so we had students, staff, and parents complete a survey. We are going to look at our upcoming STAR, which is our benchmark assessment, and we are going to do a comparison of like students who attended the program, like students who didn't attend the program, and looking at the change from the spring to the fall STAR data and see if there's any correlation between those students that attended the program and didn't. And what we're going to do is our new Director of Innovation and Learning, Allison, and myself will do a presentation to the board and the community on our findings. But we want to thank, anecdotally, it was a great summer. The kids had an excellent time. There were some incredible projects like water slides that they created, a very STEM project. And they just had a great time and learned a lot along the way. So we want to thank our teachers who worked in the program, our students and our families, and this board that supported the program as well. I do have a transportation update. The good news is majority of the transportation will be very similar to last year's. There are some changes in the elementary runs, and this is really due to a shift in our high school enrollment. So as you recall, we have two tiers, right? We have buses that go out and pick up high school students, bring them back here, and then fan out to 3 different high schools. Those buses, upon their return, become our elementary runs. So when you have a shift in where these buses go, now a smaller bus is going to go to Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery, a larger bus is now going to go to Putnam Valley, that impacts the second tier runs and picking up elementary students. So there will be some shifts, particularly on one particular run. But I want to tell you that the longest run is no more than 50 minutes, and that is either the same or less than this year's run. So we're not increasing runs, but timing may change for some individual students based upon the first tier of our high school runs. And we plan on releasing the bus runs tomorrow through the parent portal. And we're making sure, and information will go out to parents to check the portal when the bus runs are available tomorrow. So that is some good news. And this evening, we are recommending that we continue our Orange County transportation contract. So that'll be.
I just have a quick question for you, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
How far is the furthest a family might have to go to bring their child to a bus?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's no farther than it was last year, and it's well within the state regulations.
Do you know what the state regulations?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get you that information. I don't want to misspeak. Okay. It also depends on the age of the student too, but we can get you that information. But the bus pickups and stops are pretty much the same as they were last year. The timings may be different based upon where the bus is coming from to pick up those kids, and which side of the street the bus stop is on. And I think the most exciting news is we no longer have to say the district that will remain nameless. We are excited to announce this evening that we will be launching, fingers crossed, but we will be launching a school lunch program thank you, thanks to the Putnam Valley Central School District, who has worked and partnered with us to make this possible. And what this will allow us to do is become a recipient agency underneath Putnam Valley's food service agency. And Putnam Valley had to go out of their way and actually rebid, and they're approving their contract this evening to include us as part of their food service authority. They had to go out and rebid so that the New York State Education Department Child Nutrition Program would approve us being an RA under their FSA. So I want to thank them, their Board of Education Superintendent, Dr. Luff, their Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Chan. They really championed working with us and making sure that they continue their strong partnership with us. They didn't have to do this, and they wanted to do this to support our community. So we couldn't be more thankful and supportive. But I also want to give a special thanks to Joe Jimmick. He had to deal with me pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. But he was the person, our school business official extraordinary, he was the person behind the scenes, making sure he was communicating with Putnam Valley, their food service consultant, making sure our kitchens were ready, that things were repaired. We secured equipment that was needed to have a kitchen ready for food service, and also even being available and on scene when Putnam Valley opened the bid. So without Joe's work, none of this would have happened. So we owe him a great deal of gratitude for that. The exact start times, how parents will sign up, that will definitely be forthcoming. Like I said, Putnam Valley is on their board tonight, hopefully approving their contract. And once we get that, we'll get more information out to families. I know they use my school bucks. I know we will be using their point of sale system. So all of the information will go through Putnam Valley's point of sale system, and we'll get that information out to families. But I remind everybody, this is no cost to families regardless of income status. Every family will be able to send their student to school and have them get a free lunch at no cost. Again, thanks to this board for really pushing us forward and making this happen, and more information to follow. I want to talk a little bit, unless there's questions about the school lunch, I can stop there. All right. I want to talk a little bit about inner code of conduct, but also school board policy 7316, which is the banning of internet connected devices. I just want to remind families that this is a New York State law. All districts are required to comply. This board adopted this policy, and this year we did have a kind of bell-to-bell ban on cell phones, the data was, as was shared with the community, our teachers were very much in support of it. Our students were pretty mixed about it. But this goes a step further and says, like, this is bell to bell, this is their off, and they need to be stored, and they need to be away. And they cannot be used, and that means passing time, lunchtime, once they get off the bus, to the minute they get back on the bus or dismissed. Cell phones are, and this also includes smartwatches. We did not address smartwatches last year, but any internet-connected device must be off and stored. And so in the middle school, we'll be using school lockers for kids to store their devices. In the elementary schools, we'll either be using cubbies, or if a teacher decides that they want a storage bin or some way to secure it in the classroom, they will do that. My advice to families, particularly with smartwatches, have the kids leave their smartwatches at home. There are exceptions to this. If a student has a 504, or there's a teacher who wants the students to use it for an educational purpose, that's outlined in our district policy. And lastly, I know this is going to be a change for our students. I know this is going to be a change for our families. We understand that. We're sympathetic to that. But if there's an emergency, please know we can get in contact with your student. You can call the main office. We'll get them immediately down. We can use our intercom system. If you want to drop off a note, we'll make sure we get those to students. Like, hey, by the way, don't go on the bus this afternoon because I'm picking you up. Something has changed. We can get that information to students. We'll make sure that we do that. So please look for more correspondence from Ms. Emig. She's going to send something out. I know she'll be talking about it about the school nights. But we did have a trial run, and our students were pretty respectful, and I don't see us having a major issue. If we were a high school district, I would say that those school districts are going to have a little bit more of a adjustment period, if you will. And I do want to let families know and students know. We're not going to be punitive about this, but we are required to take data on the number of infractions through the New York State Education Department. And that concludes my superintendent's report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Questions? Okay. Let's go ahead and continue this theme, but we can move into new section 5, which is board president remarks. So I just want to acknowledge, what I think a Herculean task this was for both Greg and Joe. I think it's fair to say that pretty much nobody thought it was possible to get an official lunch program up and running in this school. I know it had been looked at quite hard under previous administrations, and there was a lot of effort put into trying to restart a lunch program under previous administrations. And ever since, I haven't been on the board that long, but during my time, my understanding was that it was not a solvable problem, that the economics didn't work, that the size of the school made it impossible. And as far as I'm aware, we don't even know when the last time this district had a formal lunch program up and running. It's probably been several decades. So, this is a huge achievement. I've heard, everywhere I go now, people are like, what's going on with school lunch? What's going on with school lunch? I think we have something good to say, but I can't say anything yet. And, I think the community is going to be very excited about this. Huge amount of gratitude to Putnam Valley for making this work. This really has been a really big effort on their part to go out of their way to see if they could make this work within the confines of their program, to rebid their food services provider, and then just all the effort that has gone in, both with you, Greg, Joe, Mike Donito, making the kitchen sparkle. As I heard the other day when I was down there, that it's now ready. The old cooktops are now ready for fried egg and bacon if anybody wants to go down there and use the griddle, and it looks great. So I think this is a really great thing for the district. It also came in, knock on wood again, but under budget, potentially significantly, and at no cost to any of the families in the community. So I'm very excited about this program. I cannot wait to not make lunch every day, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So thank you to you, thank you to Joe, who's not here tonight, but also to the whole staff, Mike and everybody that's really made this possible, and Putnam Valley especially. So just wanted to say thank you about that. I also just quickly want to touch on some of the other issues you talked about. I'm also very excited that we are bringing in Mr. Barone and Mr. Gonzalez as full-time employees of the district. I think that's a great testament to the district's continued commitment to arts education. Obviously, continuing to staff our theater program for pre-K through 8 is also a great thing, and I think just reflects, the I think the values of the board and the importance of continuing this arts education and making that an important part of our offerings here, as well as the Summer Scholars Program. I heard great things from folks about the Summer Scholars Program as well. It's now, I think, safe, at least for another budget year. That's part of our general operating expenses rather than grant funded. So again, just a commitment to offering great educational services in this building. So thank you for your leadership on that. Bus runs, I know there's always a lot of sensitivity from folks about bus runs. We will also continue to have our, we have a bus stop tip line or comment line that will be sent out again to parents. That's been open the past year, but I think we will make sure to recirculate that inbox where if people have concerns about their bus stop or anything along those lines, they can let us know, and we're not necessarily going to be able to do anything about it, but we can at least take a close look and see if adjustments can or should be made. So yeah, I think that's all I have for now. And unless anyone else has any comments, we can move on to the next item. All right, moving on to item 6. We will, is discussion of the Outdoor Immersive Classroom Task Force. Another very exciting item, if you ask me. So as people might recall, as part of the budget process of during this past year, we allocated some funds to begin planning for an outdoor immersive classroom in our school forest. That was, so far, it's just been very preliminary discussions. But Pete has graciously volunteered to lead what the next phase of this discussion will be, which is going to be a task force that will look at what that facility should look like. So, I think that the idea, as far as it's been conceptualized so far, is that we'll get together a group of community members who can work with our architect and look at what the community and the staff and administration wants out of this space, what it should look like, and then hopefully we will get some guidance from the architect in terms of what those options might look like. So, Pete, did you want to add anything to that?
No, just very excited to be part of this, and yeah, I'd like to meet with you two maybe, or whoever, about exactly what we feel are the next steps, and take it from there.
Can I add one thing, Dan? Just so the community knows, part of the money we're allocating to design is also for them to lead us through a design process. That's part of the scope of the work that they're doing. So yes, thank you, Peter, for chairing it. But they'll, I think maybe the first step is to meet with the architects and talk about their process. They've done this before. They get community stakeholder input, and all of that generates generates proposals, right? They come back to the board that reflects the stakeholders' input, and then the board has to make decisions based upon scope and whether or not we're going to do it and all that. So I'll be happy to set up a meeting with the architects, Joe, myself, board leadership, and we can and then share with the community how they can get involved.
And then are we trying to, again, if all goes well, to have something to consider for this next budget season?
So what we'd like to do is sooner than later talk about process, then send information out for community members and staff to get involved. Have meetings in fall, early fall, so that by the time we get to January, we have something for the board to consider, some proposals and plans, so that the board and the finance committee can consider it as whether or not it should be part of the budget.
Great.
And so in terms of process, I think we'll try and send something out, just like the SPO SRO task force, we'll try and send something out as soon as tomorrow or sometime next week, just putting out a call for volunteers or interested parties who wanna be part of this, is that?
Yeah, I mean, we could do this, sooner than later. I'll ask the architects usually what they do in
Mhm.
terms of getting community buy-in. It's something we can announce, as we welcome families back, and maybe the first week or so of school, we'll put, feelers out for community members.
Great.
Right now, I think everybody's focused on getting their school supplies and, maybe not having to make school lunches.
And not having to buy lunch boxes.
That's right, no lunch boxes.
Yeah, but the sooner, I can talk to the architect.
Absolutely,
That'd be
we can do that next week.
great, perfect.
Great. Any other questions or comments on our outdoor classroom space? Okey-doke. Next item is 6B, which is board discussion of the private contract for the SPO research group. So we just wanted to continue this conversation about, that we had started in previous meetings about collecting data about the perceptions of safety within the building, sort of to run parallel with the SPO, bringing an SPO into the building, and talk about some of the updates we have on that front, and try and get a sense from board members about what our appetite is to either spend additional resources on some of this effort or to pursue alternatives. So maybe, Greg, do you want to just start out by giving sort of another summary of what you heard back from Hanover Research Group and where that stands?
So the board asked that we look at research firms and community members that may be willing to support us on evaluating the impact of having an SPO. And there was a lengthy discussion in this very room by the board about that. So we did reach out to a couple community members that expressed interest in potentially supporting us. I think the scope of the work and the nature of the work, as we spoke to them a little bit in more detail about what we were looking to do, I think it was beyond the scope of what they do and what they were comfortable with. But we appreciate community members wanting to support us. So I reached out to an educational research firm called Hanover Group. They actually have an expert on their team who deals with school safety and is an expert in research in school safety. They are willing to do and work through with us to gather data and do survey research on, the efficacy of having an SPO, the impact of which. Certainly they're going to have to work with this board on what question are we trying to answer, and then we'll design specific research instruments that are valid and reliable to use with our community to get at the question of what we're trying to measure. The cost of that, as I shared with the board previously, is about $9,500. We can get it through a cross-district contract in BOCES, and at the best scenario, maybe you get like 20% 18 months later by the time you pay a 10% administrative fee. So, that $9,500 is maybe 20% less net, but it's still that amount of money. The other option the board discussed is, trying to create a survey on our own, and I know some board members have shared with me some tools that we could look at and use and try to organize that. And that's the other option. So that's where we're at. As I said, the Hanover Group is ready, willing, and able to work with us and do that. I did some other research. This is about the going rate, $9,500 for educational research. That would be long-term, over a year. And developing a report, they would do a presentation to the board and show their findings. So it's not an astronomical amount given the scope of the work that we're asking them to do.
So it seems like we have a couple options, at least that I see. There's Hanover Research Group, should be $9,500 less maybe the 20%. That would be probably a pretty comprehensive survey. We could, we pursued possible no-cost options through the community, which I think that's sort of off the table. The board could try and just put together something as simple as a Google survey, or whatever that would look like. That would obviously not hit the same metrics for objectivity and rigor, but it would be it would be one option. One other thing we had talked about was that we do have the district-wide safety committee, which is the folks who are listed in the district-wide safety plan. That's, we had talked about this just a little bit, but, that could be an option where we sort of assign this task to that group and have them sort of come up with proposals or think about, how do we assess perceptions of safety or, actual, security or safety within the building, both from an objective and a subjective perspective. I think, that's an option that's at least worth considering as well. I don't know what that would look like over the long term. Would probably be something that we would have to sort of, ask them to take on, or through Greg ask them to look at. That includes, I'm on that committee, I think, as well as, our PTA presidents, co-presidents, and, a number of other representatives from the staff and administration. So just sort of wanted to open it up. We're obviously down 3 board members, 2 who I think are, pretty strongly in favor of this effort, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. But if open, would love to hear what people are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say a few things. I think we should do it, and I think we should do it with Hanover. They seem, like a great outfit. I mean, I trust Greg very much to find these good partners. And, I've said this many times. I think I said this even before, like months and months ago. If this is a pilot program, that says something, and we've called it that publicly from the beginning. And you can't have a pilot without some sort of measurement. And I think the measurement can't just be, well, do we like the person that we hired, or do the kids like them? I mean, that's not enough. That's not the goal of what the SPO is there for. From the people who really wanted the SPO, that wasn't really what they were saying. They were saying that there's a feeling of not being safe here, or feeling unsafe here, and that this would help. So I think we should do it, and I think we should do it at a level that the community can feel like we really did our due diligence here. We really came through on the idea of this being a pilot. And I don't think we should think of it as, well, the data is going to be vague anyway, and so anyone can interpret the data any way they want, so we shouldn't do it. That's not science. I mean, I think you have to try and do this as rigorously as possible. And then, yes, there might be a debate about what the numbers mean, but there's a debate about all numbers. And so I think it's money well spent. I don't think we have to spend it every year. I think if this gets up and running and it's like, okay, this feels good, and the board wants to keep with the FPO next year, like, I don't think we have to do it again, unless something changes. But I think we should be really rigorous here.
I agree with Pete. The only thing I would add is that I think it would be also helpful for the Hanover group to give us, and maybe it's the safety committee they work with a little, some ideas of things they could do internally in the future. So if we hire them to analyze the first year, maybe some markers we look for to continue to improve in the future, or things to keep an eye on. And like maybe every 3 years you have them come back or they advise on something. I agree. I think to do it internally is too much to ask. And having worked with people creating surveys, people who don't have or aren't trained to do that, it takes 6 or 8 months to put together a good survey. And we don't have 6 or 8 months to put together a good survey. We need someone who's an expert to do it for us, at least this first time.
I mean, if we're going to do it, we should do it with Hanover. I still think we don't really know what we're trying to figure out. And I honestly challenge you guys. What is the outcome of this survey that we would then say, we're going to get rid of the SPO? Like, what are we trying to accomplish with that? That's my only concern.
Yeah.
Is it an analysis of the individual? Otherwise, it's kind of like.
Well, if people don't feel any safer than they already feel. We're assuming that having an SPO on campus will improve how we feel about safety when we're on campus. Maybe there's no improvement in that feeling.
So we can you imagine a scenario and then we come to it the following year?
I mean,
I,
so that's a show.
I don't think we should try to decide what we would decide in the future. I think we should have that discussion then. And we might say, okay, we still want an SPO, but it's really not focused on our feelings of safety. It's some other thing, you know, and that can be, that's fine, but I think we need to be transparent with the community about why we have an SPO, you know, and I think this is one step in that level of transparency. The data might be one way or the other. I don't know what it's going to be, you know. From the beginning, I couldn't believe that people did not feel safe at this school. So, you know, I would bet, if I had to bet, that there's not going to be a huge change in the feeling of safety because people were, you know, feeling safe to begin with. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. We just have to make a rigorous decision as a board then whether we want to spend the money next year for something that maybe the data shows doesn't really accomplish the goal it was set out to. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We do a lot of things because we just, you know, for other reasons, or those reasons change. But yeah.
I just don't, I feel like this survey is kind of something we're doing, but we don't know really why. I really don't feel like we have a really solid understanding of why we're doing this. Like I feel like we're doing it because we feel like we need to do it. But I don't necessarily think the survey is going to guide us in any one direction on what we do next year. I think it's going to be Greg's evaluation. It's going to be general feeling of the community. It's going to be the teacher feedback. That's my only, it's just an observation.
Right.
Okay? It's okay sometimes to do surveys, just to do them, to make people feel better about what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it's going to be play a huge role in what we end up doing.
I think it's one part of that decision-making process in the future. It's going to be, could be this data, could be Greg's feeling about how the building is, or Allison's. You know, it could be just our general feeling, or maybe input we've gotten from teachers or parents. I mean, it's all going to be, it's going to be this, again, an amorphous group of data points. But I think this is one, and it's an important one to do well. So I feel strongly we should do it.
I also would just, I mean, the survey, the deck you sent about Hanover, it just says district may request one survey project. I would just like to know a little bit, what does that mean exactly? What are we getting out of it? Before, after, like kind of just there
The
wasn't a ton of
one project means just this question. If you had some other initiative.
So we talked about like a before and after comparison.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
encompasses all this?
What they mean by one question kind of survey is this question. If we were gonna do another survey on school lunch, let's just say, right, that would be an additional cost.
So
This
this is
is
just not-
comprehensive for this one
Yeah.
question. One of the things I could suggest is that I can have the Hanover group talk to the board. It could be in public, it could be a small group that's not a quorum, and they could talk a little bit about how they would design. And I think Kent, to your point, I think all points are valid. We have to define what question we're trying to answer. And I think if we can get the board to, and work with them to really generate the essential question we're trying to ask, then they'll design a survey around that. Some people, do you feel safe or not? That may or may not be the question, I think. But if we engage with the group, they'll walk us through. They work with school districts, they'll walk this board through that process. We'll come up with the question that the board wants to answer so that we can have transparency with the community of what we're trying to evaluate. That would be my suggestion in this case.
Yeah, so take everybody's point on this. I do think that I think that's a good potential path forward. I do think we should, level set about time horizons, about how much, I think it's unlikely that we would have enough data after 1 year to make a determination based on just on that data about the SPO program. So I think of this as if we're going to do the data collection, it might be a multi-year effort, and hopefully we can get some of this from Hanover. If we're going to go down that road, if you're redoing the questions, you have an established survey already. It's a lower cost to sort of redo it over a couple of years. But I do think it's important that we at least recognize that 1 year of data may not be enough to drive a decision on this, at least in my view. I don't wanna get ahead of it, but,
I would think that Hanover could advise us on that.
Yeah.
They might say, well, this is a tricky question to ask,
Yeah.
to figure out in 6 months or a year, maybe you need to go into the next year.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out from
Right.
there, but that's what
right.
they do.
Yep, yep. I also just think we need to make sure we're including the teachers and staff in whatever
Absolutely.
survey we're doing, cause that's obviously been a
100%.
really important part of this. So it sounds like it sounds like there's consensus, and thinking about also who's not here, to probably move this forward at least to the next stage of the discussion with the Hanover group to figure out, maybe get a scope or, some sort of, draft contract or something that we could look at, or proposal from them, to move it forward along these lines.
I have a meeting scheduled Monday. I was gonna let them know which way the board wanted to go on, and I can certainly, include a representative from the board if they wanna join me in that, so that we can, talk about it. And if we go through BOCES, it would just be a COSER, we wouldn't need a contract, but I think a formal proposal would be important, so that it can outline the four corners of the work that they'll be doing with us, if that would help the board in terms of like next steps forward.
So do we have to, vote on the COSA or no?
No,
Okay. But we can still discuss it.
absolutely,
The next one.
absolutely.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Moving on to our first public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commentators will be invited to the podium to address the board. We have nobody on our sheet tonight. Anyone in the audience wish to make a public comment? Okay, then we will close public comment and move on to item 8, which is acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the annual reorganization meeting and regular business meeting of July 9th, 2025 as presented. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okey-doke. Moving on to item 9, financial reports. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the June 2025 and July 2025 claims audit reports as presented. May I have a motion?
So,
Second.
Any questions on the claims audit reports? Comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to the personnel items, item 10 of the agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion?
second.
And then pause, or did you wanna?
Just a
talk about
couple
of these?
comments, if that's okay, Dan. I want to let the board know and thank Naomi Cook and Krista DiDiego, who will serve as mentors. Naomi doing the second half of a mentorship she started in January last year, and Krista will be mentoring our new first grade teacher, so thank them for supporting our new teachers. I also want to make a mention to the community and to the board to thank Matt Ferdina, who will continue to serve on our facility committees as a community volunteer. We really appreciate that. As you said, Dan, this evening we are appointing the district-wide safety team. we will meet before the end of the school year to devise a new district-wide safety plan for the next school year, including any changes that New York State does. I also want to recognize Janice Swirbioff, and who will be starting as a non-certificated sub for us, and welcome back Samantha McDowell, who will be returning as a certificated sub, and she also worked in our summer scholar program and did a wonderful job. We have, as I mentioned earlier, welcoming Zemery as a teacher aide, and really excited to have Meg Berger start with us as well. And lastly, rounding out our hires for this, and we are fully staffed at this point. Jeff Barone being on staff as a music educator. So I want to congratulate all of them and welcome them to our GUFS family, or formally to our GUFS family. And we're really excited to start the school year, so thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on any of the personnel items? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to item 11. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the new business items as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this includes, let's see, a number of items. The establishment of the tax levy and acknowledgement of the tax rates. I need to read that separately or no? Okay. So that obviously is set by the budget that was adopted in May. It is just issuing the warrant so that this process can get started. And then, approval of the district-wide safety plan, approval of the 2025-2026 code of conduct, and then I just want to highlight the approval of the contract for the special patrol officer, and just quickly note that this is sort of the next step in the SPO process. It's moved relatively quickly over the summer, thanks in part to Putnam County Sheriff's Office, which largely accepted the changes that we recommended or that we asked for in the contract. It includes a lot of items that had been raised by members of the SPO SRO task force in the spring. So I think ultimately this is a really favorable result in terms of what we could have hoped for in this contract. From here, we will move, I believe, into the hiring phase. Well, the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, once the contract is ratified by both parties, we'll move into the hiring phase. And so the process continues, but this is the next step. Do you want to say anything else about any of the other items?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that the Putnam County Sheriff's Office agreed to all of the items we proposed. Some slight language change, but in essence, in sum and substance, it's exactly what we asked for. It was reviewed by the county's attorney and reviewed by our attorney to make sure that the language was correct, getting at the safety provisions and insulative factors we wanted in this contract. So we got everything that we talked about in this contract, which is unique for Garrison. None of the other districts have that. So I appreciate our efforts to make sure we do it right.
Any questions or comments about any of the other items under new business?
I just want to say, the board knows this, but the community knows, we did bid for that water heater project that was part of our phase 1 capital project. The problem is that all the bids that came in, except for one, were over our budget, and the bid that was well below the budget didn't use prevailing wages, which was part of the scope of the bid. So we have to reject all the bids, and we will put out another bid to get the water heater project bid correctly, so that we can award that, or at least recommend for the board to award it in the future, and hopefully get that water heater project done.
final item, I do just want to recognize the GSEF grants that we are accepting. We are accepting $13,652.25 from GSEF, which is going to go towards soccer benches, mindful yoga with Liz, which I know is a very popular activity for many of the kids, transportation for 8th grade immigration trip, and classroom library refresh. So thank you as always to GSEF for its generosity. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Moving on to our second public comment section. I will not reread the paragraph, but public comment is open again.
I do have a question. I'm taking notes for
Okay.
other parents.
Great.
And I was only able to get yoga, soccer benches, and the amount was $13,602. Sorry?
$13,652.52.
Thank you. And would you mind repeating what we're getting for that?
Sure. Soccer benches, mindful yoga,
Mindful yoga.
transportation for 8th grade immigration trip, and classroom library refresh.
Thank you so much.
All right, with that, we will close public comment and move into item 13, which is board member comment. Jen, you are first up.
So, I know, having been in education for over 30 years now, my family's always like, oh, it's summer, it's gonna be a quiet summer. Well, we did not have a quiet summer by any stretch of the imagination. I think the amount of things that were accomplished are just amazing and deserve recognition, whether it be the safety plan, the lunch program, the SPO, all the work on that. So I just wanted to take a minute to just thank everybody who worked so hard on getting all that done this summer. I can't believe what we were able to accomplish in such a short period of time. And I know on behalf of our children that it's going to make a difference in their lives, especially for this next school year. I also just want to thank the GSEF for the grants that continue to support our students. Thank you.
No further comment from me. Pete?
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Jen just said, I'm just really excited and impressed with what everyone has been able to accomplish. You know, just thinking about a new school year, you're always thinking about the future, and it feels like we're really doing, you know, so many things to help our students and faculty in terms of safety, health and wellness. We have a new director of learning, you know, so their classroom learning experience is going to keep evolving for the better. And so there's just so much going on that's really, really positive, and all within a budget that's very doable. So well done to us and to the administration, of course, and our faculty, you know, and staff. So thank you for everyone.
Okay.
I mean, I have to go last, so that's not just say ditto, but I just want to point out, you pointed out in your note that Joe obviously has done a ton of work on this with the school lunch, and just adding another job to his job description, running school lunch now probably, or dealing with school lunch. So just kudos to Joe and kudos to you and everybody that I know really it was a tight timeline. You guys worked really hard to get it done. So thank you.
And that's it tonight. So we do have executive session. So item 14 is be resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing the school history of a particular student in accordance with their FERPA rights and discussing matters made exempt by FERPA. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Adjournment. Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union. Yes.
Sorry, we will adjourn when you come out of exec session.
Okay.
Yes, no further business?
You tell me, is that right? You tell me?
Yes.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
answer. Whatever you say.
As long as we don't have to stay or
Yeah.
we get stuck
Okay.
here.
So we are moving into executive. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
based on the fact.
That's pretty good.